Animorphs, The Christmas, by Jim Ma. My name is Rachel. I can't tell you my last name, how old I am, where I live, or even what year it is. It's just too dangerous. I can only hope that somehow, by the time that anyone reads this, that we won, that the war was finally over. Rachel, honey, can you check on the ham, please? That's my mom. More than anything, I wish I could tell her about everything, but if the Yerks got to her, we would all be in danger. That's what they are called, by the way, Yerks. Tiny little slugs that crawl into your brain and take over your body. They could be literally anybody. For all I know, she's one already. It looks good, Mom. Smells good, too, I shouted back. Truth is, I'm not as comfortable eating animals as I used to be. Not since I gained the ability to turn into one. Did I forget to mention that part? Here's the bullet points. Andalite warrior crashes on Earth. 5 kids touch a magic box, gain the ability to morph into any animal they touch, and become the last line of defense against an alien invasion. No pressure. Today is our annual holiday dinner. What I am craving more than anything, even more than my mom's sweet potato casserole, is something normal. Sweetie, can you get the door? My mom shouted. I barely noticed the knock at the front door. I got it! I opened the door to see my cousin Jake, the reluctant leader of the Animorphs, which is what we call ourselves. I think Marco came up with the name. It's strange really to think of my cousin as a war general sometimes. We used to play doctor together. We have a doorbell, you know, I said. Merry Christmas, he says to me, and gives me a hug. It was nice, but there was something in his eyes. It was the following, I need to talk to you, that he whispered that confirmed it. This was not going to be the bit of normalcy I was craving. We had to keep up appearances until we had a moment to speak privately, so after doing my best to enjoy our holiday dinner, I offered to clear the table. Let me give you a hand, said Jake. When we got to the kitchen, Jake was peeking around corners to make sure we wouldn't be overheard. Cassie says she has something we need to see, he said. We need an excuse to go there tonight. Tonight? I said. Here we go, I thought. Now I was certain this wasn't going to be a gift exchange. I sighed as my head dropped. I know, Jake said, with a comforting hand on my back. I went to the fridge and took out the whipped cream and dropped it into the trash. Mom, Jake and I are going to the store. 15 minutes later, we arrive at Cassie's farm. Her family runs a sort of animal shelter that nurses injured animals back to health. Basically a vet. We have acquired many animal morphs from Cassie's barn. Jake and I entered the barn to see Cassie, Marco, and Axe. Axe is an Andalite prince, a real-life alien who looks like a centaur with a scorpion tail. He has blue fur and 2 stalk eyes on top of his head, and no mouth. You would think that would be the oddest thing in the room, right? Instead, it was not the alien at all. It was what Cassie was gently stroking. A 600-pound reindeer adorned with Christmas bells. That's just my life now, I guess. How was dinner? Cassie asked. Cassie is a very homely-looking gal. She was wearing a yellow shirt and her usual blue jean overalls. It was nice, I replied. Really, guys? Said Marco. Oh, come over to the barn right away. I have some super important information about an alien invasion. But did you have mashed potatoes for dinner? He said sarcastically. That's Marco for you. Always sarcastic. He gets a good laugh out of me every once in a while, though. I guess we need that. I brought you a plate, I said. Oh, sweet, said Marco with a very different tone. Any birdseed on that plate? Said a familiar voice in my head all of a sudden. It was Tobias, who I hadn't even noticed was perched in the rafters. Two things I should explain in case you were picturing a fully grown boy perched in the rafters. Tobias is a hawk. He is now, anyway. Tobias is a living example of the consequence of staying in morph for more than 2 hours. He's trapped forever, but in a weird way, he seems happier like this. Oh, right, the second thing. I don't hear voices like a crazy person. When we are in morph, we can speak telepathically. We can't read minds or anything, which would be super cool, but we can talk to each other. I did bring you some corn, I said. You rock, Rachel, he replied as he dropped down to begin pecking at the bowl. So about this reindeer, Cassie said, snapping our attention back. What reindeer? Said Marco with a full slice of ham hanging out of his mouth. He's really beautiful, I said. For a moment, it seemed as though it was flattered. I can see the appeal, Axe said in my head. I decided not to respond to that one. You need to acquire him, said Cassie with surprising sternness. A reindeer? Said Jake. It doesn't seem tactical. Again, there was a strange look of recognition and offense from the reindeer. I disagree, said Axe. The additional eye stalks could be very useful. Just trust me, said Cassie, even more sternly. If I tried to explain, you wouldn't believe me. Please. We glanced for a moment at each other and then stepped forward to place our hands on the reindeer. That's all it takes to acquire a morph. The reindeer grew calm and its eyes relaxed. Normally there's just a slight tingle in the fingers as we acquire the animal's DNA, but this time was different. A sudden flooding of images bombarded my mind. A snowy landscape, the aurora borealis, penguins, mountains, candy, pine trees, presents, glitter, a feeling of joy, and Santa? I reeled back in complete and utter shock. I thought it was only me until I looked around to see that everyone else had the same look on their face. We were all speechless except for Axe. Well, he was technically speechless. Strange, he said. This phenomenon tends to only happen with sentient creatures. Besides being our only true morphing expert, I guess he would know. Axe has acquired all of us for his human form. We all saw that, right? Explained Marco. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, said Jake. He's real? Said Marco. Yes, said Tobias. Santa Claus is friggin' real. And he's in trouble, I said. And we have to help him. The Yerks are trying to take Santa. It's up to us, said Cassie. We're the only ones who can help. The Animorphs have to save Christmas. So this is what we know, said Jake. Santa is real, and the Yerks are after him. But why? Dude, think about it, said Marco. He can get into any and everyone's house in a single day. They could take over the entire planet in 24 hours. Marco is right, said Cassie. Can you say that again? Replied Marco with a smirk. I just want to get it on record. So how do we get there? I said. How do we get to... You know. I might as well say it, said Tobias. Santa's workshop. I was going to say North Pole, but yeah, Santa's workshop, I replied. The reindeer then knowingly nudged each of us aside, as though it was making some room in the middle of us. The swirling of what I can only describe as glittery magic wind appeared below the reindeer's feet as it floated off the ground. The reigning deer has taken flight, observed Axe. You think? Said Marco sardonically. Well, that answers that question, eh, Jake? Said Tobias. Yeah, said Jake. That answers that, but there are still a lot more questions, like what is the Yerk's plan, and how do we stop them? We go to the North Pole and we kick their butts, I said. I know it's not that simple, but I feel like I need to be brave. We need to go now before it's too late. I think you're right, but let's see what we are facing first and then decide how we can intervene. So are we settled at least for now? Jake said. We go now, and then we decide on our plan of attack. Reconnaissance first, then we attack. We all looked and nodded to each other in agreement. At that very moment, the reindeer nudged open the barn door and headed to the open field. Guess we don't need a GPS, said Marco. We've got deer PS. Even Axe rolled his eye stalks at that one. Everyone ready? Said Jake. And we all began to morph, some better than others. Cassie, for example, has a natural talent for it. We think it's her love for animals that makes her so good at it. All of her changes happened in unison as her arms turned to hooved front legs and gently came down to the ground. Tobias began to grow larger, and his feathers turned to fur. Marco started his morph out by growing antlers, and his face turned reindeer before the rest of his body. For me, it was my midsection that morphed first. My chest and stomach were suddenly the size of a tree trunk. My friends say I'm pretty, that I could be a model. I don't see it personally, but especially not now. Next thing to change were my legs and arms. They changed so quickly that I was pulled to the ground. My still human face hit the dirt and left my head ringing. My nose started to grow so long that I could see it in front of my face. As the antlers grew from my head, they started to twist my neck. I had to try to stand up so I wasn't so twisted up. What really surprised me was how clear my vision became. Some animals see differently. I thought reindeer sight would be less clear, but these eyes were more like a hawk's. Maybe that's just magic reindeer, I thought. I braced myself, because at about this point is where the animal's instincts kick in and try to take over. I still have dreams, more like nightmares, about losing total control of some morphs. This was different, though. This morph just felt like, well, me. It was a relief, really. We never morphed into something with the sentience, a personality. It just seems, I don't know, wrong. That's what Yerks do, not us. The reindeer, the real one, seeing that we were done, floated off the ground and flew a quick, tight circle as if to say, come on, let's go. But this was so different than being a bird. We didn't have any wings to flap. I only knew that I wanted to fly and didn't even realize that I already was. Rachel, how are you doing that? Said Tobias. Oh, I don't know, I said. I just wanted to, and now I am. So I guess just want to? She's right, said Cassie, who was now flying alongside me. You just want to, and you do. Like you just will yourself. That was exactly it. For a magic reindeer, flying is like a dream. You know how sometimes you think of something in a dream like, I want a latte, and then you suddenly have a latte in your hand? It was just like that. This is so smooth, said Tobias. Surprisingly agile, said Axe. With one final circular sweep around us, the original reindeer darted north, and we followed with an amazing burst of speed. The lights below us streaked together into rapidly flashing lines of color. We were moving so fast, and yet somehow there was no wind. Before we knew it, we were just there. We had made it to the North Pole in seconds. The only light now was from the stars and the northern lights. It was quiet, beautiful, so peaceful. For a moment, the darkness became suddenly illuminated by a flash of red light. Ah! Marco screamed. His fur was glowing red hot, and he began plummeting toward the earth with a trail of smoke behind him. As I turned in the air and bolted toward Marco, I almost forgot just how fast these reindeer morphs could move. I almost hit the ground before I turned around to line myself up with the plummeting Marco. He hit me with a huge thud that drove both of us toward the earth. All I could do was slow us a little. If it wasn't for the deep snow, we'd both be in much worse shape. I wriggled myself out from under Marco's reindeer body. Marco, I cried out, Marco, can you hear me? I couldn't tell if he was even breathing. The snow around his gaping wound was still hot enough to melt the snow. I cried out again as I nudged him with my snout. Marco, please wake up! Marco, you have to wake up! Hey, what's cooking? An agonized voice moaned. Is that venison? Oh my God, Marco! I thought shouted in relief. He's okay, I shouted to the others. No idea if they could even see or hear us. Marco, you need to morph, I told him. Is it bad? He asked. It's bad. Morph now. The reindeer began to shrink and the open wound closed over itself as fur turned to skin. Before the reindeer's head started to change, it grew Marco's long human hair. It would have been funny if we weren't 2 seconds from death. Marco shivered in the cold. His leotard and human body were not made to fend off this kind of cold. Where are the others? Is everyone okay? He asked through chattering teeth. They aren't responding. I don't know. The snow we landed in was so deep we couldn't see out. We need to go, I said. Can you? My reindeer ears suddenly perked up. It was quiet outside except for a familiar crunching of snow. Footsteps. Someone is coming, I told Marco. Battlemorph, hurry! Oh ho! That won't be necessary. A comforting voice came from outside. It was a voice that somehow made me feel safe and warm. It made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. It's been so long, I almost couldn't even identify the feeling. It was joy. Take my hand, young ones, the voice said. Your friends are waiting. A mittened hand reached into our crater of snow, and without a word or any sign of questioning, Marco took it. Horn or hoof, young lady, either one will do, he said. I obliged by placing an antler next to Marco's hand. I figured I could do the most damage that way if our rescuer was not what he seemed. Then in a flash, as soon as we had touched, we were inside a large cabin. Cassie and Jake came running toward us. Thank goodness you're okay, cried out Cassie as she squeezed me. Jake did the same to Marco, but then they tried to play it cool when they noticed they were being watched. Rachel, are you okay? Were you hurt? Asked Tobias from somewhere. But there was something strange about his voice. It was different. It was out loud. I almost didn't recognize him. It's been so long since I had seen him as a human. Tobias, you're a... Yeah, just for a little while, though. It's only while we're here. Come to think of it, I was human too. How did I morph back? Also, where is here? I hadn't even looked around yet. I was just so happy to see everyone alive. We were in what looked like a log cabin standing in a parlor next to a burning fireplace. There was a fully adorned Christmas tree that stretched up about 16 feet and still didn't touch the ceiling. The entire room was decorated in Christmas decor. Atop a wooden table at the center of the room were several cups of hot chocolate. Ha, tip, 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 choco, choco, colet, said Axe. His weird amalgamated face was absolutely covered in chocolate and cookie crumbs. I do like this very much, this chocolate. It was then the door swung open to reveal our rescuer. Garbed in red velvet with a snowy white beard and rosy red cheeks, it was like he popped right out of one of those soda commercials. Santa Claus. I'm sorry to cut short your reunion, children, but as you know, me and my people are in great danger, and so then are your own people, said Santa. The Yerks will soon find a way to break through the barrier, and if that happens, I fear all will be lost. Excuse me, Mr. Santa, said Marco. Can you, zap them with some Christmas magic or send some ghosts to them in the middle of the night? Perhaps launch a barrage of tow missiles, said Axe. That's not as cool as it might sound, Axe, said Marco. My people, the Takesh, are forbidden to fight. I'm afraid our technology, or what may look like magic to you, is purely defensive. Wow, just that right there created a million questions for me, said Tobias. Later, guys. We were brought here for a reason, an urgent one, said Jake. What's the situation? The Yerks, said Santa as he unrolled a piece of parchment on the table, are attempting to penetrate the barrier that surrounds the village. They have made a few attempts with small weapons which are easily deflective. One of which, my apologies, hit you, Marco. A Dracon ray, said Cassie. Indeed, said Santa, but this is of a much greater concern. The ink on the parchment began to rearrange itself from a diagram of the dome to a very large rocket-shaped laser. This laser is capable of absorbing energized protons. In other words, it will absorb the shield and leave us vulnerable. That is so Star Trek, said Marco. I suppose it is, replied Santa. Guys, Santa watches Star Trek, Marco said, excitedly to a room of rolling eyes. Given time, I will be able to move my people and our village into a phased state, in which solid matter cannot interact with us and vice versa. Unfortunately, our matter inversion phase induction unit requires a great amount of energy we are using to maintain the shield. I need you, my dear brave ones, to destroy that laser and keep them busy until then. I'm ready, I said. Let's take them out. Before you go, my young heroes, I have something that can aid you. It will not last long, but should give you a significant advantage, said Santa. He led us into an adjoining room. Sitting in a large chair that was still too small was a large furry beast covered all over in thick white hair, except for his face and belly, which were a rough blue skin. This is Ryan, said Santa. He has agreed to offer his form, but only to one of you. At that, Ryan stood up, and we saw just how massive he was. He must have been at least 10 feet tall, maybe more, and his arms, legs, and even his feet looked dangerously muscular. So, which one of us? Asked Jake. That is his choice and his choice alone, replied Santa. Ryan looked around the room at each of us, carefully before stepping forward. He slowly kneeled down between me and Jake and then gently held out his open palm to me. Are you sure? I asked him, and he gave me a nod as he delicately lifted my hand and placed it in his. I looked at the others and they nodded in agreement. He was so calm and gentle that I never even noticed him enter a trance. And it was done. All right, team, ready? Jake yelled out in thought speak, now in the form of a Siberian tiger. No one replied, but instead he received an affirming nod from a wolf, a hawk, an andalite, a gorilla, and the abominable snowman. Good luck, children, said Santa. I am forever in your debt. I wish you a safe return. He began waving his hands around when suddenly a swirling portal began to appear before us. It grew larger and larger until we began to see through it to the invading Yerk soldiers. I knew I should be nervous, and maybe I was supposed to be afraid, but I will be honest with you. I was hungry for a fight. Very hungry. We charged through the portal and felt the warm air suddenly change to cold. 1, 2, 3 human controllers were down, then 8, 9, and 10 before the rest knew anything was even happening. And those were just my count. Marco was pummeling his own share of enemies while Jake slashed away at his. Cassie and Axe leaped from one person's throat to another while Tobias clawed at their eyes. The white snow was painted with splashes of blood. It looked like Christmas. My kind of Christmas. Dracon rays began to fire at us. Safe to say they know we're here now. Rachel, the laser, shouted Jake. It's mine, I yelled back. The tip of the giant metal contraption began to spin as a soft blue stream of light began to emanate from it. The light was growing brighter. I charged toward it at full speed. This form was so powerful I knew I could shatter it into 100 pieces. A line of human controllers were between me and the laser, but they won't be for long. I was confident. I guess too confident. What I thought at first was a standard beam from a Dracon ray grew very large and intense, hit the ground just behind them. But it wasn't coming from the ground. It was coming from the sky. The beam was so intense it turned the snow to vapor in an instant. It was drawing a line straight toward me, even vaporized a couple of controllers along the way. It barely missed me as I dodged to the left. The other controllers ran off in fear. "Blade ship!" yelled Tobias. I took cover behind the anti-polar whatever laser and looked up to see the huge blade ship. It looked like a giant battle axe flying handle first. It was low enough to see the crew through the windows, and there, front and center, was an Andalite. We all knew which one. "Bring me the Andalite bandits!" cried out Visser 3 in booming, hissing thought speak. "Fail, and you die." Visser 3, the only Andalite to ever be taken by the Yeerks. "Rachel, look out!" yelled Jake. I noticed far too late that I was surrounded on both sides by several Hork-Bajir, one of the first races to be taken over by the Yeerks. They are incredibly dangerous, with large curved blades along their arms and legs, head and tail. Two of them leapt forward, one slashing at my arm and the other at my leg, which dropped me to the ground. The other, seeing me weak, charged and leapt on top of me. I felt stings and burns all over my body as they slashed away at me. This was it, I thought. This is how it ends for me, for the Animorphs, for Earth. But then, one by one, the Hork-Bajir were backing off, leaving me alone. I saw a sudden flash of orange and black. Jake. I saw a wolf leap at another. Cassie. A scorpion tail whipped at another. Axe. A hawk diving out of the sky. Tobias. And a gorilla tossing a Hork-Bajir 10 feet into the air. Marco. I was relieved to see my friends, but disappointed that they only left me 5 Hork-Bajir. I threw my arms out to the sides and smashed a few of them at once into the laser. That leaves 2. I grabbed one by the neck and flung him hard into the other. I nearly sliced him in half with his friend's tail blade and then chucked him away. My adrenaline was pumping. I was in pain, yeah, but it felt like we were winning. I should know better than to think these things, because that's when the blade ship started firing again. "Stay close to the laser," Jake said. "He's trying not to hit it." "But we have to destroy the laser," said Cassie. "As soon as we do," added Axe, "he will kill us all." And that's when it hit me. And this next part is embarrassing because, yes, I really did say it. "Two birds, then!" That's when I took advantage of this morph's crazy strong arms and legs. I grabbed a hold of the giant laser and put my abdominal back into it. I screamed and yelled and grunted and with all of my might pointed it at Visser 3's ship. I could see the lights and the engines of the ship grow more and more dim until finally it just dropped from the sky. "Xena!" cried out Marco. We were all so excited and distracted by the ship that we failed to notice we were surrounded by Yeerk soldiers. They had the advantage, guns aimed right at us, but they looked afraid. But they weren't looking at us. "The Andalite bandits are mine," hissed Visser 3. We looked back toward the ship, and there he was. Then the Andalite began to morph, and he grew larger and larger and larger until he was taller and wider than 3 Boston markets put together. Spiked tentacles burst out of his sides. He looked like a giant green ball that was mostly mouth, and that mouth had 100 rows of sharp teeth. The earth began to shake as he rolled toward us. The tentacles were slapping the ground and throwing huge pieces of earth into the air. We couldn't run away fast enough. We couldn't dodge it. But we're Animorphs. We fight. It's what we do. So we stood our ground, baring our teeth and our claws. And when the first wave of tentacles came crashing down, nothing happened. We could see the earth being torn to shreds all around us. "No!" screamed Visser 3. "Fight me, you Andalite cowards!" "What's happening?" asked Cassie. "Ho ho! You succeeded is what happened," said Santa, who was now standing behind us. "The village has been successfully phased, as are you. We are no longer in danger. Come, children." We followed close behind, and once again, in an instant, we were in the cabin, surrounding a table of hot chocolate. "My young friends, you have endured much, and we asked of you even more. For your suffering, I am truly sorry. For your kindness and courage, I am truly grateful," Santa said gently. "If you would grace us once more, the villagers would like to thank you." With that, Santa led us up a winding staircase to a balcony. As he opened the doors, we could hear cheering, a lot of cheering. The balcony looked out over a massive crowd of people, small, pointy-eared people. "Holy crap, guys," said Marco excitedly. "They're elves! They're friggin' elves!" And towering them all in the middle of the crowd was Ryan, with whom I exchanged a nod of gratitude. "I trust you are ready to get home and rest. Your family may begin to worry if you are gone much longer," proposed Santa. "Whoa, hang on there, Nicholas," said Marco. "We got questions, like a lot of them." "Oh, ho, ho, I'm sure you do. I tell you what, I have much to do with Christmas only a few days away. Perhaps you can come back for another visit next year, and I will answer them all." "I'll hold you to it, big guy," said Marco. "Ho, ho, ho," replied Santa. "I know you will. Now if you are all ready." Santa reached out his hand, we all reached in to touch, and in an instant he disappeared. Or rather we did, and were suddenly back in Cassie's barn. "Guys, look," said Cassie, pointing to a red envelope on a wooden table that wasn't there before. "What's it say?" I asked. "It says, 'To our young heroes,'" said Cassie as she opened it and removed the card from inside. "I don't get it." "What do you mean? What is it?" said Tobias. "It's a list," said Cassie. "A list of names. It says nice, and then it says my mom and dad, Jake's mom and dad, Tobias's grandmother, Rachel, your mom is on here, Marco's dad." "What about my sisters?" I shouted with a sudden realization. "Are my sisters on the list?" "Yeah," said Cassie. "Why? What is this?" "This is a list of who isn't being controlled," I said, nearly crying. "They're safe." "That means I can tell my dad. We can tell them everything," said Marco. "No," said Jake. "No, we can't tell them anything. This just means that they're okay right now." "Jake is right," said Cassie. "If they get taken later, the Yerks would know everything. It's still too dangerous." "Then what's the point then?" I yelled. "Why bother telling us this?" "Because now you know. Now you know when you go home and you hug them and tell them you love them, you know it's actually them hugging you and saying I love you back." And there we stood together for a while in solemn silence. We wished each other a happy holiday, and each left the barn at our own pace. I got back home to see my mom and sisters laughing and giggling in the kitchen. I grabbed them all at once and squeezed them tight. "I love you, all of you, so much." "Well, thank you, sweetie," replied my mom. "We love you too, with all of our heart." And she kissed me on the head. "Hey, where's the whipped cream?" "Oh, they were out," I said, as I squeezed everyone tighter together. Thank you for listening. Have a happy holiday.